You're very welcome back. Um, Most teams reach for intensity when performance drops. They seem to think that doing more work in some way actually will improve the outcome. I'd say that unclear standards fail long before the effort does. Um, I've always been a believer you analyze the process against the outcome only, never the people. It's not about the people. And if you strip back the outcome and process and remove blame from the room, you'll actually have a far more productive meeting. An example would have been years and years ago now. I was IT manager for a company, and I remember speaking with the CEO at one of our meetings, and I just said, like, I thought we had a potential hack attack, and his answer was, I talked a little bit about it, and he said, "You don't seem very angry about this." And I just said, "Would it help?" And he asked me, "What do you mean?" And I just said, "Would it help if I was angry?" And he said, "Well, I'd feel you were doing something about it." He says, "You need to understand I am doing something about it." And I explained it. But my belief is being angry is wasted effort in quite like the emotive side of things. I think it's a way it's a waste. It's something that happens, by the way, and it's something that also emotion needs to be managed as well and give it space where it can actually be allowed, but not in an analysis phase, not in that moment. There's a time and a place for it. I'd say what helps more is actually spending time analyzing what's gone wrong. For me, that was the whole thing. I wanted to understand first before I could drop the hammer and go, this is exactly what's happened. So I'm just a believer in there's a time for emotion, but it's not immediate. Get through whatever needs to be got through, and then give yourself the space. Um, some teams do need this intensity thing of we're going to double the hours. No one's going home tonight. We're going to work harder. We'll be here all weekend. If it doesn't require it, then I don't think that actually helps. In my opinion. And it's usually used, by the way, to sort of balance out a lack of performance or a drop in performance. More hours, more people, more urgency. Um, yeah, I think it's wrong, and I think it's unnecessary. It's instinctive, by the way, because it's something that culturally I think we've all been taught. You need to knuckle down. We need to get more work done here, and we're all going to be. It's like just sit back, maybe clear the room, think about it from how do we get to the outcome. What's the shortest path, by the way, because it doesn't need more hours. Sometimes it needs clearer thinking and move away the noise from around it so you can actually deliver it. Most definitely unclear standards fail before effort ever does. I would say that from experience, software development, you'll have teams asking for more resources when actually smarter thinking is what was needed. But resources are usually a thing people jump at. If we had more people and more hours, I would say if you had more clarity and better thinking, you'd probably have a better outcome. An example with my shooting, currently it's a 40-hour training week, would 60 help? I don't believe it would until I've refined my process so well that there is no more improvement possible, which is not going to happen. But if it was, we said, then you ramp up the one thing that will improve, which is doing more time. But mostly it's like we need more resources. We need to work longer. You don't sit back, think clearly, and sometimes removing the noise will allow you actually see the clearer path through. I'd say that a team that doesn't know what right looks like, they'll burn energy, and all in the wrong direction too. Busy fools in some cases. I always run the process against the outcome. In shooting, it's always the process against the outcome. If the number was a low number, there's a reason for it. Something in the process failed. And the more you examine that, the more you remove that from the process, which gives you a higher outcome even. I'm all about defining the outcome. My process, I call it 0.OS. You define the outcome or the mission. You create the process to achieve that. and there are metrics put in place or against the process to check and make sure that the outcome is where we're heading, not in a different direction. And then the only questions that are allowed to be asked are how do we improve this process to reach the outcome? Anything else, and it could be considered witch hunt territory. It could be blame game. We've heard that. I don't really like the blame game thing. It's not helpful. But I believe one of the biggest elements is 100% ownership. If the whole team owns the outcome, nobody is going to be blaming other people because they own each element within that process that they are delivering against that outcome. Ownership is massively important. Um, I would say that there are three basic conditions for a clean analysis that I go through anyway in my shooting. It has to be, emotion has to be removed. So there's no room for happiness or sadness in relation to a shot. Every shot is a shot. You don't get a second chance at it either. By the way, the number that's up there, you don't get to negotiate a better one. I'd say that in the discussions, an opinion is a judgment against the outcome only, not the people that are delivering the outcome. So it's not about the coach, it's not about the athlete. It's definitely not about your competitors, by the way. When I hear us, oh, they were, it was unfair. I got this against me. That is honestly unfair is not something that I have room for either. It's a child's term, fair. Um, but I own 100% of things as well, 100% of the outcome of that shot. So I'm happy to own that and carry that. Um, Standards versus methods for analysis, I suppose. So the standard can be high, while the method used to reach it was wrong. You need to separate those two. So I have a standard that I go through checking my process. It stands separate to the method because the standard could be, we'll say I check A, B, and C, and before I do D, E, and F. And the method might be incorrect. For example, if I have a process I go through where I'm not going to give away the juice on it, but for example, it could be simple as how I put the butt plate. And then I hold the pistol grip properly, and then I put my head down on the cheek piece. Now, if I get the pistol grip in and put my head down the cheek piece and then pull it into my shoulder, the method I've used may be incorrect. It might have been better if I had gone pistol grip, butt plate, and then head on the cheek piece. Similarly, in business, we said in software development, project delivery for infrastructure, even IT infrastructure, we have standards that we hold ourselves to for quality control. The method of implementation might be different. It could be, well, normally you'll have to have cabling backbone to put in switches and routers, etc. And then servers with operating systems out to PCs, things like that. And then you'll have WAN connections. But the timeline to delivery, you might get certain elements of that actually you'd be better off doing not in waterfall, but actually in agile, where some stuff can be put in ahead of others. Cables would be necessary before PCs can connect to anything anyway, that type of thing. But in the shooting, the method I've explained about the pistol grip, shoulder, in the butt plate, and in the cheek piece, they might be done differently with a different outcome. Funnily enough, it's like stacking boxes on top of each other, the wrong box in the wrong time. It doesn't create a stability. So the one thing that really can't be left out of a clean analysis is 100% ownership, and 100% ownership of delivery, not my little box, for example. So the developers, I've never entertained it, and I won't. Developers versus designers versus builders. It's not about owning my design or my build or my code. I own the delivery of the project. Therefore, I come with a clean head and a clean heart. And when I discuss things, it's about how I can achieve things through what I do rather than everyone else being responsible. And while my job is done, that just doesn't, it cannot exist. Not if you want to get ahead, not if you want quality, not if you want to play at the big table, if you want to succeed on a world platform that I'm looking for. Just couldn't happen. one of the things that I've an experience of is in Wales. So I was asked, well, at one stage I'd done a competition, and I was asked, why I didn't dry fire, and I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, you got a high score. And I said, you'll have to go further on that. I don't understand. So, well, normally, you'd stop and you'd dry. We call it dry firing, which is it's a it's a blank fire. So you don't fire a pellet or a bullet. You go through the process and you pull the trigger, and it's called a dry fire. That's why it's dry. And I just said, but I would never be able to do that anyway because my process doesn't allow for that. I'm not counting. I only I only exist in that shot, each shot. I don't exist in the one before and the one after. I'm in the process of that shot that I'm in. And that for me was the, I suppose, the analysis of where I was up to was why would I be dry firing? And it wasn't related to improving. It was an unnecessary discussion. So I just said I'm trained not to count numbers. I train not to think about the shot before or the after. I train to purely be in the moment in the shot. Um, and that's the standard, and that's the process I have. Um, what I would say is the way I approach my system, and this is something that you could ask your own teams if you're part of a team. Can they define the outcome in just one sentence, not multiple sentences, just one? Mine is simple. Um, the perfect shot, 10.9. And then I examine only the process against that. Similarly in business. So if you are going to deliver a website, examine the process you've created against delivering it on that date. And a lot of this needs to be very fatalistic as such. So there's no movement. There's not a, well, because through movement, the thing about shooting, 10.9 is the number. It doesn't change. If I don't get that, there's no discussions on, well, we can fall short. We can't because I'll be gone home. At the level I'm competing at, that we just don't get a second chance. You're gone home if you perform badly. Um, Similarly, if you were to say I'm going to deliver an e-commerce platform that's going to generate, we'll throw a number of 5 million in revenue per year. It's got to be available on that date. It's got to allow for all this functionality. So what's the process that we're going to use to get that up? And the date is the date. It's not one that moves. It actually has to be that date. It has to be, because if there's no serious consequence to missing a timeline or missing an element, then the quality is gone. The urgency even to deliver on that time, it's gone. So it has to be on that date, and then everybody has to step up and go, so how does my element within this process get delivered so we can meet the timeline? But we all own it, so that it's not just that I'm covering my ass and it's like, oh, I've written the best code ever. That really doesn't help. That'd be like me shooting bad and blaming the coach, or blaming the rifle, or blaming the location. I mean, this is the type of stuff I'm up against. But the stuff I'm up against, again, we're down to half a millimeter is the outside of the bullseye, and then there are 10 concentric circles within that half a millimeter, and I have to be hitting with the precision of, so if the outside is 10.0 and the dead center of that half a millimeter is 10.9, I have to be accurate from 10.5 to 10.9 with every shot. Doesn't leave a lot of room. So I have to be meticulous, but also there is no room for complacency. There's no movement in, you know, she can have a bad shot. You can't, because you're gone home if you do. So the process I have doesn't have room for any of that. Um, and on that basis, in my team, there's no titles. There's no room for it. I'm the guy who pulls the trigger, but there's a lot of work goes in with the people around me. Logistics getting me there. If I don't get there, I can't compete. If I don't get there in a timely fashion, there's more pressure. But there's a lot of pressure on the logistics team to get me to places. Then the coach, he's got to coach me in a certain way that delivers the best outcome and gets the best from me. But we're on a flat structure, so everybody is trying to get the number, which is the 10.9 shot on the start line. Titles and attitude, no room for them. um, unless they are related directly to the improvement of the process so that we can have a positive outcome. That's my reality anyway. Um, I'd say a clean process analysis converges on the outcome. If you have a really, really, really clean analysis of your process, it's going to deliver the outcome you want or the output for the outcome. It only gets complicated when there's things like politics, titles. I hate that word blame game, but when someone's coming in to hold someone else, um, when you're going to blame or hold someone else accountable for a problem, I don't believe that that's right. And one thing I want to really emphasize is adding people is not an outcome. So when you hear, oh, we need more resources, we need more to work long, I don't believe anyone needs to work longer. I really don't. Um, when your performance and your process are at that level where adding resources are going to affect the outcome in a positive way, by all means, but I tend to see people reaching for numbers. We need to do more hours, we need more people, you know. Um, I would say a cleaner approach will give a different, and more importantly, a positive result in a lot of simpler ways. It doesn't have to be complicated. Come in with a fresh head into that room, not one that you've had. I've seen this 1,000 times before. Sometimes people come in with, oh, they've already decided what the problem is, and then they go looking for the information to back up their thesis, if you want. That's not the way to come. I think you come in with a fresh pair of eyes on things. That's how I approach my training, because there are days here where it falls apart. Now I can go, oh, it's always like this, or oh God, something happened before and I did it and it worked right. Come in with a fresh pair of eyes. And sometimes, by the way, that's meant where I've shut down training for that day because I'm just too tired to be able to analyze it properly. And I've come back in and, I've learned more coming in with a fresh head on it. That's very important as well. But I'm still only focused on delivering the outcome, not looking to blame people, not looking to see who else can be responsible. I didn't do it in industry. I'm not going to start doing it in shooting. Um, the next video I'm thinking of doing is clean analysis under pressure, because that is very important, both in business and in shooting. So yeah, thank you for coming by.